When Freddie was alive, he didn't talk about his private life.
Freddie Mercury's final concert carried hidden hints of his approaching death, though few realized it at the time. From his electrifying energy on stage to the emotional weight behind his last words, the performance seemed almost like a quiet warning of the tragedy to come. In this video, we'll explore the unusual and lesser-known facts about Freddie's last show that left fans and the world both amazed and concerned. The rise of a legend.
But Mike is an absolute genius.
Freddie Mercury came into the world on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar, a small island that was once a British protectorate. His parents were Parsi and followed the Zoroastrian faith, one of the oldest religions in existence. From the very beginning, Freddie stood out in remarkable ways. He was born with 4 extra teeth, something he would later believe helped create his extraordinary vocal ability, allowing him to sing across an incredible 4-octave range. Growing up surrounded by African, Arab, and Indian cultures gave Freddie a deep appreciation for diversity, a trait that would eventually shape his music, fashion, and stage persona. When Freddie turned 17, life took a sudden and dramatic turn. The Zanzibar Revolution of 1964 brought chaos and danger, particularly to families like his. Thousands of people lost their lives, and Freddie's family was forced to flee for safety. Before settling in England, Freddie had spent much of his childhood in India. At the age of 8, his parents sent him to St. Peter's boarding school in Panchgani, near Bombay, a British-style institution that would leave a lasting mark on his life. It was there he first began calling himself Freddie, and where his passion for music was first recognized. A teacher noticed his exceptional musical talent and encouraged his parents to invest in formal music training, a decision that quietly changed the course of his destiny. At school, Freddie formed his very first band, the Hectics, alongside 4 friends. They performed rock and roll covers by artists like Cliff Richard and Little Richard. Even at 12 years old, Freddie's love for performance was evident. He was also deeply inspired by Indian legends such as Lata Mangeshkar, whose commanding vocals left a lasting impression on him. These early influences, both Western and Indian, would later blend beautifully in Queen's groundbreaking sound. When the Bulsara family finally moved to England, they settled in a small home in Feltham, near London. Times were tough, but Freddie's ambition only grew stronger. He enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic to study art, later advancing to Ealing Art College. There, he refined his design skills and even created what would become Queen's iconic crest years later. To make ends meet, Freddie worked several odd jobs, including washing dishes at Heathrow Airport. Each experience, each struggle, quietly shaped him into the resilient dreamer who would one day transform into one of rock's greatest legends. The making of a music legend.
After that, with what other people...
While studying at Ealing Art College, Freddie Mercury's life began to take a decisive turn. There, he met Tim Staffell, a talented musician who was part of a band named Smile with guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. Freddie quickly became close friends with them, often sharing creative ideas and suggestions for their performances. In 1970, when Tim left the group, Freddie stepped in as the new lead vocalist. He also proposed a new name, Queen, believing it carried an air of majesty, power, and confidence. Their first public performance under this name took place in June of that same year at a local charity show, marking the quiet beginning of something extraordinary. At that time, the band was still incomplete. They needed a bassist who could match their energy and precision. After auditioning many candidates, they finally found John Deacon in 1971. Around this same period, Freddie officially adopted the surname Mercury, inspired by a line he had written, "Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me." The band worked tirelessly to find their sound, but success didn't come instantly. Their first album, released in 1973, failed to make an impression in the UK and only reached number 83 on the US charts. Their next release, Queen 2, in 1974, showed some progress, climbing to number 49 in the UK, but the group was still hungry for more. Disappointment began to set in, but it was their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, that completely changed their fate. One particular song from the album became their first major breakthrough, shooting to number 2 in the UK and number 12 in the US. Freddie wrote this track in one sitting at his piano, beginning with the lyrics first, something rare for him, as he typically started with melodies. The song told the story of a glamorous high society escort, but what truly stood out was its unique sound. Brian May's guitar solo, played with a sixpence coin instead of a traditional pick, created a distinctive tone, and the band's layered recording technique added rich texture. However, not everyone was initially pleased. Roger Taylor worried that the song's playful and pop-oriented tone might make fans think Queen was abandoning their rock roots. In fact, the track was recorded last and almost didn't make it onto the album due to heated debates among the members. But once released, it propelled them into the spotlight, setting the stage for what was to come. Then came the masterpiece that changed everything, Bohemian Rhapsody. Released in 1975 as part of a night at the opera, it transformed Queen into global icons. Creating the song was a massive undertaking. It took 3 weeks to record, included 180 overdubs, and cost £40,000 to produce, making it the most expensive song of its time. It defied every rule in music, combining a ballad, an operatic sequence, and a hard rock finale into a single track. EMI executives doubted it, claiming it was far too long for radio play, and begged the band to trim it down. But Queen refused. Their manager secretly handed a copy to DJ Kenny Everett, who loved it so much he played it 14 times over one weekend. The public reaction was explosive. The song dominated the UK charts for 9 straight weeks and climbed even higher in popularity after Freddie's death in 1991, once again hitting number 1 in the US. Though initially peaking at number 9 in 1976, Bohemian Rhapsody soared to number 2 in 1992 when it was featured in Wayne's World. It sold millions and became one of the best-selling singles in British history. Queen also transformed the concept of music videos forever. The video for Bohemian Rhapsody, filmed in only 4 hours with a budget of £4,500, became iconic. Its prism-like shot of the band's 4 faces used a visual feedback effect that gave it an ethereal glow and set a new standard for how music videos could promote songs. Queen continued to push creative limits. For I Want to Break Free, they appeared dressed as women, parodying the British soap Coronation Street. The humor and audacity shocked many, so much so that MTV banned the video in the United States. Another hit, Radio Gaga, became one of the most expensive videos of its time, costing $100,000 and featuring clips from the 1927 film Metropolis, for which they paid another $100,000 just for usage rights. Their live shows were equally groundbreaking. During their 1975 A Night at the Opera tour, Queen used an enormous lighting setup with 168 lights and 12 airplane landing lamps. The rig was so massive that it required its own generator and hours of assembly. By 1986, during their legendary Wembley concerts, the light setup had grown to more than 1,000 lights and included a 5-ton crown-shaped frame. A true spectacle of rock theatrics. Freddie's stage persona evolved with each passing year. At the start, he was shy, often hiding behind his piano. The famous half-microphone stand that became his trademark happened by accident when the lower part broke during a show. Freddie liked the freedom it offered and kept using it ever since. By 1973, his image took on a bold new look. Inspired by Jimi Hendrix, he painted his nails black and began wearing flamboyant glam rock costumes by designer Zandra Rhodes. In 1976, he introduced the now iconic Harlequin jumpsuit, so tight it had to be sewn directly onto him before every concert. By the 1980s, Freddie reinvented himself again. Sporting a mustache, leather pants, and military-style jackets, he reflected the influence of New York's gay club scene. Yet, his sense of humor never faded, as seen in I Want to Break Free, where he appeared in drag but kept his mustache, confusing and amusing fans alike. His stage antics grew increasingly wild. During the 1982 Hot Space Tour, he famously rode on a crew member's shoulders, dressed as Darth Vader, while belting "We Will Rock You." In Japan, he once performed wearing only shorts, shedding his costume piece by piece in front of a delighted crowd. As Queen's fame expanded, so did their challenges. In 1981, they experimented with a disco-inspired album, Hot Space, which received mixed reactions. Freddie and John Deacon were eager to embrace new sounds, but many fans were skeptical. The single body language caused controversy due to its sensual video and suggestive lyrics, leading MTV to ban it completely. Still, Freddie's creative spirit never waned. In 1985, he released his first solo project, Mr. Bad Guy, after spending 2 years perfecting it in Munich. The album was filled with dance rhythms and electronic influences, showing a different side of his artistry. He even dedicated it to his beloved cats and to all cat lovers. It entered the UK top 10, but failed to make a mark in the US. Regardless, it gave Freddie the confidence to explore new musical territories. 2 years later, he teamed up with opera singer Montserrat Caballé to create the album Barcelona. The title track, a brilliant fusion of opera and rock, highlighted Freddie's vocal mastery. The song later became the anthem for the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, though tragically, Freddie never lived to see that moment. Meanwhile, Queen's internal struggles grew more visible. After Hot Space, the band took a break in 1982, plagued by creative differences. Brian May later admitted that they hated each other for a while. During the making of their 1984 album, The Works, tensions boiled over. Brian stormed out of the studio in frustration, spending hours wandering through a park thinking about quitting the band. John Deacon abruptly flew to Bali without notice, leaving everyone stunned. Freddie, always the joker, reacted by singing Bali Hai from South Pacific when he heard the news. Controversy also followed them off stage. In 1984, Queen faced international criticism for performing in Sun City, South Africa, during apartheid, leading to a ban from the Musicians' Union and condemnation from the United Nations. At a concert in Rio de Janeiro in 1985, they were even met with boos. Behind the scenes, Freddie's personal life added further tension. His manager, Paul Prenter, caused numerous issues within the band, to the point where Brian May refused to even mention his name, calling him only that guy who handled Fred. But on July 13, 1985, everything changed. Queen took the stage at Live Aid, and what happened next would become one of the most unforgettable moments in music history. The final curtain call.
Mary's gone through just about everything, and so I can actually...
Though Freddie Mercury had been struggling with his health and his voice was showing signs of strain, his determination to perform never wavered. On that fateful evening, just before 7 o'clock, he and the rest of Queen took the stage and delivered one of the most unforgettable live performances in history. Within just 21 minutes, they electrified the world with snippets of their biggest hits, Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, and We Are the Champions. During Radio Gaga, Freddie led the audience in a synchronized clap that became legendary, a moment witnessed by nearly 1.9 billion viewers watching from around the world. That show did more than just entertain. It reignited Queen's career. The energy of Live Aid breathed new life into the band, motivating them to start fresh. Soon after, they began working on a new project, A Kind of Magic, intended as the soundtrack for the fantasy film Highlander, a movie centered around immortality. Recording began in 1985, with the band experimenting with cutting-edge digital equipment to achieve a modern sound. The title track drew inspiration from a line in the film, but Freddie reimagined its tone and lyrics, much to Roger Taylor's initial frustration. Another powerful song, Who Wants to Live Forever, was written by Brian May after an emotional scene from the movie inspired him. It featured an 80-piece orchestra, giving it a sweeping cinematic feel that captured the spirit of the film. By 1986, Queen was preparing for their most ambitious tour ever, the Magic Tour. It spanned 9 European countries over 8 weeks, with 26 shows in total. The stage design was unlike anything fans had seen. A colossal 160-foot structure with twin runways stretching into the audience. More than 8 miles of cables powered the elaborate setup, and a massive 20-foot video screen required its own generator. The sound system was so powerful that people miles away could hear the concert, prompting noise complaints from neighboring towns. Then came August 9, 1986. The day that would mark Freddie Mercury's last live performance. As the evening sun began to fade, 120,000 fans gathered at Knebworth Park. The air was electric when the opening chords of One Vision thundered through the field. Dressed in his trademark white tank top and tight jeans, Freddie appeared confident, though his throat was inflamed and his doctor had warned him against performing. Ignoring the advice, he chose to go on anyway. For Freddie, canceling was never an option. He began to sing, one man, one goal, one mission, but his voice trembled slightly, a rare sign of weakness. Still, the crowd didn't notice. The band had crafted a shorter, more manageable set list that evening, worried Freddie might struggle. Yet, as the night went on, he defied every expectation. His voice grew stronger, his energy infectious. During Under Pressure, he momentarily missed a high note, but instead of hiding it, he turned it into a connection, encouraging the crowd to sing along, making the moment magical. By a little past 8 o'clock, they launched into Who Wants to Live Forever, a haunting and emotional highlight of the night. The lyrics, Who dares to love forever, when love must die, struck differently that evening, as if Freddie were speaking directly to his own fate. Then came Bohemian Rhapsody, one of Queen's most challenging pieces. Freddie poured his soul into it, singing even parts of the operatic section live, which were usually pre-recorded. When he hit a high note he hadn't reached in years, the audience roared, sending waves of energy back to the stage. As the clock neared 9 p.m., the final anthem began. We are the champions! Freddie's voice cracked again, but instead of stopping, he leaned into the note, holding it with every ounce of strength he had left. The crowd's cheers were so thunderous they echoed through nearby villages. Then came God Save the Queen, their traditional closing song. But Freddie didn't immediately leave. He stood still, eyes closed, soaking in the sound of the music and the energy of his fans. When the final chords faded, he turned, bowed deeply, and gave one last, heartfelt expression, a silent goodbye. The time was 2 minutes past 9. Freddie Mercury had just completed his final live performance. Yet behind the scenes, emotions were tense. 18 minutes before the show, John Deacon, usually quiet and composed, had thrown his bass guitar across the dressing room in frustration, nearly hitting Roger Taylor's drum technician. It was shocking behavior for someone known for calmness. Later, Deacon confessed to Brian May that he couldn't handle it anymore, overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the moment. Deep down, he may have sensed that this could be their last time sharing a stage with Freddie. During that same show, tragedy struck the audience. A 23-year-old fan standing about 50 meters from the stage suddenly collapsed during Who Wants to Live Forever. Paramedics rushed to him, but despite their efforts, he was pronounced dead just before 10 p.m. as the band played Bohemian Rhapsody. He had an undiagnosed heart condition, and the intense excitement of the concert proved too much. Just 2 days earlier, he had won his ticket in a radio contest. His friend Sarah later recalled how he kept saying it was the best night of his life, moments before he fell. The heartbreaking incident led to tighter safety measures for large-scale concerts in the future. After the show, Freddie did something unusual. He left immediately. Normally, he would linger, laugh, and chat with the crew. But that night, he walked off quietly. According to his assistant, Peter Freestone, Freddie had received an unsettling phone call from his doctor earlier that day, news that deeply troubled him. He seemed distracted, exhausted. In his haste, he even forgot his silver bracelet, a lucky charm he had worn at every concert since 1977. It was later found by a cleaner and returned to him. On the drive back to London, Freddie sat in silence, looking out the window, occasionally wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. Later that night, he confided in Freestone, saying softly that he was losing hope, a rare moment of vulnerability from a man known for his strength. Roger Taylor also remembered finding Freddie alone in the dressing room afterward. When he looked up, Freddie repeated the same words he'd told Peter. At the time, Roger thought he was simply tired. Only later did he realize Freddie had been saying goodbye in his own quiet way. Roger still keeps one of his drumsticks from that night, a small but powerful reminder of an ending that changed everything. John Deacon, who would later retreat entirely from the public eye, once said it was the hardest show of my life. He admitted that he had cried during These Are the Days of Our Lives because he knew deep down it was the end of an era. For Queen, that night marked the close of something extraordinary, not just a concert, but a lifetime of brilliance, brotherhood, and passion. Freddie Mercury's final bow wasn't just the end of a show, it was the farewell of a legend whose voice would never truly fade. Freddie's private world and the people he loved.
No, dress got nothing to do with it. No, in terms of my thinking, no.
Among the most important figures in Freddie's life was Mary Austin. He often spoke about her in interviews, describing her as the person who understood him best. Their story began in 1969. Freddie was 24, Mary was 19, and what started as friendship quickly grew into love. They moved in together and even got engaged. But a decade later, in 1979, Freddie sat Mary down and told her something that would change their relationship forever. He was bisexual. Mary, always gentle and honest, replied softly that he wasn't bisexual. He was gay. That moment marked the end of their romance, but not their bond. They stayed deeply connected for the rest of Freddie's life. He often said that Mary was the only true friend he ever had, and no one could replace her. Even after their breakup, Freddie made sure Mary lived comfortably, buying her a flat in Kensington in 1980, close to his own home. Later, when he wrote his will, he left her half his fortune and his mansion. As his health declined, Mary never left his side. After his passing, she fulfilled his final wish, keeping the location of his ashes a secret. Freddie's later years brought new relationships. In 1985, he met hairdresser Jim Hutton, who remained his partner until the very end in 1991. Yet his love life was far from simple. Around that same time, he also had a close friendship with Austrian actress Barbara Valentin. The three often spent time together, showing how layered and complicated Freddie's personal world truly was. His inner battles went beyond love. Growing up during a time when being gay was criminalized, Freddie learned to hide who he was. He joked his way through interviews when asked about his sexuality, turning serious questions into laughter. But deep down, he carried the weight of secrecy. Beyond the stage, Freddie was an artist in every sense. Having studied art and design, he had an eye for beauty. His home was filled with rare paintings, from Picasso's works to Japanese woodblock prints, along with antique glass and portraits of his beloved cats. Those collections reflected not just his taste, but also his need for comfort and control in a life that often felt chaotic. Then came the greatest secret of all. In April 1987, Freddie learned he was HIV positive. Some believe he noticed early signs as far back as 1982, when he saw a doctor in New York about a small spot on his tongue, possibly one of the first symptoms. Despite the diagnosis, he denied rumors about his health. Still, British tabloids, especially The Sun, hounded him relentlessly, publishing invasive stories that only deepened his silence. Inside Queen, the topic was avoided. Brian May later said that they didn't ask questions because Freddie didn't want them to, and they respected that. Only a few people, Like his assistant, Peter Freestone, truly knew what was happening. Peter recalled that Freddie had seen many friends die of AIDS and lived with that fear every day. To protect himself emotionally, he poured affection into his cats and surrounded himself with beauty. Just one day before his death, Freddie finally broke his silence. On November 23, 1991, he issued a statement to the world confirming he had AIDS, explaining that he had chosen privacy to protect those close to him. 24 hours later, he was gone. Though gravely ill, he never stopped working. Even in his final months, Freddie Mercury's voice and his spirit remained as powerful as ever. The final days of Freddie Mercury.
I feel are better than somebody else's. If I have 5 songs that are better than...
Queen was working on what would become their final great masterpiece with Freddie, the album Innuendo. At that point, the band had begun to adapt everything around Freddie's condition. Recording sessions were carefully planned. 3 weeks of work followed by 2 weeks of rest to give him time to recover. Everyone knew what was happening, even if they rarely said it aloud. Brian May would later reveal that doctors had already warned them Freddie's time was running short, yet Freddie refused to give in. He wanted to keep creating, no matter the pain. One of the songs from that album, The Show Must Go On, captured that determination perfectly. When Brian worried whether Freddie would have the strength to sing it, Mercury smiled, took a shot of vodka, and declared, "I'll do it, darling." Then, in a single take, he delivered one of the most emotional vocal performances of his life. Powerful, raw, and defiant. After Innuendo was completed, Freddie didn't stop. In May, he returned to the studio to record songs like Mother Love, though he couldn't finish it. His final recording session took place on May 22, 1991, when he sang A Winter's Tale, a soft, reflective piece that later appeared on the posthumous album Made in Heaven. Even while battling a fatal illness, Freddie kept doing what he loved most, making music that would outlive him. His last public appearance came on February 18, 1990, at the Brit Awards, where Queen received the honor for Outstanding Contribution to British Music. When Freddie stepped on stage, fans were stunned. He looked frail and thin, but his eyes still carried that familiar spark. He said very little, letting Brian May speak on behalf of the band, but his quiet thank you to the audience carried immense weight. It was his final public goodbye. As the months passed, Freddie's condition worsened. By June 1991, he rarely left his home in Kensington, West London. Mary Austin and close friends visited often, keeping him company and offering comfort. His partner Jim Hutton stayed by his side constantly. Despite the pain, Freddie never lost his composure. He spent much of his time listening to music, surrounded by his cats, and reminiscing about the moments that shaped his life. On November 22, 1991, Freddie made a choice. He stopped taking most of his medication, keeping only painkillers to ease his suffering. That same day, he worked with Queen's manager Jim Beach to draft a statement for the public. The message, released on November 23rd, confirmed what many had speculated for years, that he had AIDS. It was brief but heartfelt, explaining that he had chosen privacy to protect those closest to him. The following day, November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury passed away at the age of 45. The official cause of death was bronchial pneumonia, brought on by AIDS. According to Jim Hutton, Freddie's final moments were peaceful. He appeared calm, almost luminous, as if he had finally found rest after years of struggle. Even in death, Freddie's influence only grew stronger. 4 years later, in 1995, Queen released Made in Heaven, featuring his final recordings. The album went on to sell more than 20 million copies worldwide, standing as a powerful reminder of his artistry and spirit. Freddie Mercury's story didn't end with his passing. His voice, his music, and his courage ensured that the show indeed would go on.
It's like there's always room for change, and as the show goes on, I'm sure.
Freddie Mercury is remembered as one of the greatest rock singers ever, known for his 4-octave voice and theatrical stage presence. His unique style defined Queen, making them stand out worldwide. After his death in 1991, Queen's popularity surged, especially in the US, aided by the movie Wayne's World, which introduced Bohemian Rhapsody to a new generation. By 2004, Queen had sold over 34.5 million albums in the US, with about half of those sales occurring after Freddie's passing. Globally, they've sold around 300 million albums. In the UK, Queen spent more time on the charts than any other band, and their greatest hits remains the country's best-selling album. Freddie's iconic songs, We Are the Champions and Bohemian Rhapsody, are celebrated as two of the greatest songs of all time, both inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. In 2001, Queen entered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2003, all 4 members were honored by the Songwriters Hall of Fame. The Rock Hall called them the most outstanding band of the 70s glam rock era. Freddie Mercury's voice and spirit live on, proving that true legends never fade.